What's your top wow, that actually worked moment? TLDR, apparently the normal fix for computers fixes cars as well. My friend and I were going to the mall in her car. She started the car and everything seemed fine. She put it in reverse, but all it seemed to do was put the car in neutral. No amount of pushing on the gas made the car move. The only reason we were moving back at all was because of the incline of the driveway. Once we've rolled back on flat ground, she puts it in drive hoping that it'll fix itself, but nope. We are not moving at all. In a moment of what is either brilliance or sheer stupidity, I said, "Why don't you turn it off and turn it back on?" Like it was a computer. Sure enough, she turned it off and turned it back on and everything was fine. It was like nothing was ever broken. So we drove to the mall and nothing like that ever happened to her car again. In college, I took a literature review course that included Dante's Divine Comedy. I had read it at 16 because it was mentioned in SE7N. I was an edgelord dipshit, not a literature connoisseur. Inferno is great and Purgatorio is more interesting than I'd thought, but Paradiso is boring as hell. 21-year-old me declined to reread any of them prior to the essay test for this class. I just decided to bullshit my way through, based on what I remembered from years before. Got an A. You'd be insanely surprised how many places you can go without permission / paying / etc just by acting like you belong with some confidence. This is the main reason you should always own a few nice suits. Nobody, I mean nobody, really bothers you when you're dressed very well. Once when I was a kid we picked up McDonald's for lunch on the way home from somewhere. I got settled in at the table and realized that I forgot to grab ketchup. I didn't want to stand up again, so I turned to my younger sister and said, I wish we weren't out of ketchup," to which she replies, "No we aren't." We go back and forth a few times with me vehemently denying we had ketchup until she angrily stomped to the fridge, grabbed it, and slammed it down right in front of me. She still gets mad when I bring it up to this day, lol. A baby deer got trapped in our backyard and was throwing itself into the chain link fence. Couldn't think to look behind and see the open gate. I remembered reading Cicero's Proarchia, where he mentions that sometimes animals react to music. So I told my wife to grab my guitar and play a few chords. Sure enough, the deer calmed down and started walking towards the music. She stopped for a second and it instantly freaked out again and started running into the fence, but as soon as she started again it calmed down and walked towards the sound. Once it got about halfway, it saw the gate and ran out. Wife thinks I'm a goddamn wizard now. I was a supervisor for a company. I was really good at it. Like the king of it good. I hated my boss because he was unprofessional and would yell at people on the floor rather than take them aside away from other employees. I put up with it for 2 years because I refused to leave unless I had another job with equivalent pay and benefits lined up. I was a new father and had a family to look out for. I found an acceptable job, but not my ideal line of work. I wanted them to do something about it, but was very skeptical. I was willing to take the risk. So I put in my 2 weeks and left for the new job hoping like hell they wouldn't just let me leave. They offered more pay to stay, but I refused because I didn't want to work under my current boss as he was too toxic. I didn't want to leave this company because I loved it, just not my boss. Within 2 weeks the CEO emailed me telling me that the guy I hated was no longer employed there, then asked if I would have lunch with him. They didn't just want me back as a supervisor. I ended up being a district manager, a position never before seen in this company. I've been happily running multiple branches for 6 years now. Friend brought me his Ace netbook around 2008. Remember those crappy things? The machine wouldn't boot up and seemed pretty dead. Looked around forums and found a few mention of soldering from the power connector going bad. Solution was to fit the netbook in a precise spot. I tried a few smell hid but no success. Reading down on posts someone mentioned that you actually had to hit it fairly hard, that most people just didn't want to risk it hard enough. I thought okay, nothing to lose anyway, and punched the netbook pretty hard with my fist and plugged it back in. Damn thing booted fine and actually worked normally after that until my friend forgot about it or threw it away. Can't remember. Only in case I ever saw where the real fix was actually percussive maintenance. I'm a straight dude with a lot of gay friends. One of them jokingly refers to me as king of the gays. I was visiting some friends in another city a few weeks ago and we try to go into a gay bar, but the doorman tells me there's a cover charge. I, being drunk, blurted out but I'm king of the gays, and he laughed and let me in. Ha ha ha. I was dating a girl who wanted to take her gay friends to Boys Town one night and I went with them. At all the bars we normally went to she usually got in free, cause boobs, and I would have to pay a cover. However, in Boys Town that logic goes out the window. She got charged and me and the boys waltzed right in. I was enjoying giving her shit about it. Then we went to the last bar of the night and the bouncer tells me it's a $5 cover. I'd had a few and was also drunk on my newfound cachet. I said, hey man, all the other bouncers on this street didn't charge me. He looked me up and down super skeptically and asked, why? Ego deflated. The brakes on my crappy SUV went completely out one day, so instead of paying for a tow truck my dad decided to connect my car to his pickup truck with a big chain, my car in front, dad in back, and have me drive to the mechanic shop. My car could still accelerate just fine, just no brakes whatsoever, so we called each other on our cell phones, and every time I needed to slow down or stop I'd just tell him, and he'd hit the brakes on the pickup which would either slow my car or yank it stopped if he did it too abruptly. It was completely stupid, illegal, and definitely dangerous, but we got there just fine and didn't have to drop $100 on a tow truck, so it worked. Okay, so I'm 15 years old and I'm walking home from my friend's house. I've just bought a Nokia 8010 from him for £10 and swapped my SIM card over. In my other pocket is my old phone, super basic. All the numbers had rubber off and the screen was cracked to hell. I'm about 3 minutes from home down the same street, which goes over a hill and only has one side with a train track on the other. As I'm walking towards the crest of the hill I see my worst nightmare. Bigger boys. I think there were like 6 or 7, and as soon as I saw them see me, I knew what was gonna go down. As we crossed paths the biggest one stopped me and asked for the time, whilst a few others circled around me. I've not got a watch, what about your phone? Sigh. Look mate, you don't wanna rob this phone. I whip out my piece of shit brick. I could probably use an effective weapon if I really need to. It's a piece of shit. There's no numbers on the buttons. I've lost the antenna. You can barely read the screen. He then grabs the phone, looks at it, then me, and then passed it me back saying, yeah, that's a piece of shit. Go on. Frick off. I felt like the most genius badass ever as I quickly walked home to call my friend. Friend's dad a couple years ago has an old Windows 2000 computer with a dead hard drive. Normally this wouldn't be an issue as it's an old ass machine, just get a new one. But unfortunately this hard drive had the only backup copy of some very important family pictures, since the external HDD they kept important file backups on died a few weeks prior. Went through every troubleshooting step I could think of in order to recover the data and nothing. As far as I could tell, drive was completely shot. So in one last desperate attempt I blew on the connectors and the ports, like I was trying to get my East's cartridge to work, flicked the drive with my finger, and gave it a small dramatic speech about needing to stay alive for the family. Freaking thing booted, stayed on long enough for me to grab the files, and then went dead. I half ran a stop sign that got ran a lot. Cop pulled me over. By half ran, I mean, I was doing a California slow roll through, and halfway through I saw the cop and stopped. He walks up, asked me if I knew I ran the stop sign. I said yes. Then, I don't know why, but I asked, may I have your mercy? He takes a step back, looked a little perplexed, runs my license, comes back, and just says, today, I'm merciful. Stop running stop signs. Let off with a warning. I bought a house with a kitchen that hasn't been updated since the 60s, mostly because I loved the light brown oven. Shortly after moving in, the oven stopped working correctly. We couldn't find anybody to repair it, so we found the element at a scrapyard and replaced them. It still didn't work. We were about to have it replaced when I begged for one more chance. The oven had a clock on it and a time bake function, so you could set your oven to bake something at a specific time. The clock was broken when we bought the house. I decided to try cooking something on the time bake setting instead of regular bake. It turns out that the dial had been put back on at the wrong angle, so time bake equals regular bake. I've been using the oven for maybe 3 or 4 years now, and it's not perfect, but it gets the job done. You have a message from the amazed man. Like and sub for nothing in return.